Captain Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the cold metal window of the bridge. Outside, thousands of dead ships floated in the darkness of space like sleeping giants. Some were as big as cities. Others were small and broken into pieces. All of them had been thrown away. The Kepler debris field stretched as far as she could see. This was where the galaxy's rich and powerful races dumped their old warships when they did not want them anymore. The ships came from dozens of different worlds: blue crystal vessels from the Altarians, smooth white hulls from the Vegans, dark metal monsters from races that had died out long ago. Elena had been coming to this graveyard for 5 years. She knew every major wreck by sight. Her job was simple: find valuable parts, cut them out, sell them. It was dirty work that most aliens would not do, but humans needed the money. "Captain, we got something big on the scanner," called Marcus Chun from his station. Marcus was her engineer, a thin man with grease under his fingernails and wild black hair. The big companies had kicked him out for being too creative. Elena thought that made him perfect for salvage work. "How big?" Elena asked. She moved away from the window and walked to Marcus's station. The ship around them groaned and shook. The scrapyard Phoenix was old and patched together from a dozen different vessels. But it was theirs. Marcus pointed at his screen. A green blob showed something massive floating 3 kilometers away. "Bigger than anything we have seen before. The computer says it is almost 2 kilometers long." Elena whistled softly. 2 kilometers was huge. Even the biggest human ships were only half that size. What race built it? "Running the scan now," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka from her position at the science station. Yuki was small and quiet, but she knew more about alien technology than anyone Elena had ever met. "The metal composition is strange. Quantum resonance patterns suggest ... Zephyrian." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about the Zephyrians. They had built the most advanced ships in galactic history. Their empire had controlled a quarter of the galaxy before something destroyed them 300 years ago. No one knew what had happened to them. They had just vanished. "Are you sure?" Elena asked. Yuki nodded. "The hull design matches Zephyrian. Dreadnought patterns? This must be one of their heavy warships. Maybe even a flagship." Elena felt her heart speed up. Zephyrian technology was worth more than anything else in the galaxy. Even broken pieces could buy a whole fleet of human ships. "Any other salvage crews around it?" "Negative," said Marcus. "But I am reading old cutting marks. Someone has been here before." That made sense. The good salvage spots did not stay empty for long. But if there was still a whole Zephyrian dreadnought floating here, maybe the other crews had missed something important. "Take us in," Elena ordered. Nice and slow, the Phoenix moved through the debris field like a fish swimming through a reef. Dead ships drifted past them. Elena saw the burned hull of an Altarian cruiser, a Centauri transport with its engines torn away. The twisted remains of something she could not identify. As they got closer, the Zephyrian ship grew larger and larger. Elena had seen pictures of Zephyrian vessels before, but seeing one in person was different. The hull was dark blue metal that seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. Strange symbols covered the surface in flowing patterns. Even dead and broken, the ship looked dangerous. "There," said Marcus, pointing through the window. "You can see where they cut into the hull." Elena saw the marks he meant. Clean, precise cuts that went deep into the ship's armor. Someone had used high-end plasma cutters to slice through sections of the hull. Professional work. "Altarian cutting pattern," said Yuki after studying the marks. "They took what they wanted and left the rest." Elena nodded. The Altarians were the galaxy's best engineers. If they had given up on this ship, it meant they thought nothing valuable was left inside. But Elena had learned not to trust what other people thought was worthless. The Phoenix moved around the massive dreadnought. Elena counted dozens of holes in the hull. Some looked like battle damage. Others were clearly from salvage work. The ship's main engines were dark and cold. No lights showed in any of the windows. Park us by that big breach near the middle, Elena said. We are going aboard. Captain, said Yuki carefully, if the Altarians could not make this ship work. What makes you think we can? Elena smiled. It was a question she had heard many times before. Because we think different than they do, they look for perfect solutions. We make broken things work. An hour later, Elena floated through the hole in the Zephyrian ship's hull. Her spacesuit felt heavy and awkward, but it kept her alive in the cold vacuum inside the dead vessel. Marcus and Yuki floated behind her, their helmet lights cutting. Through the darkness, the inside of the ship was like a cathedral made of metal and crystal. The hallways were tall and wide, designed for beings larger than humans. Strange blue lights flickered weakly in some sections. Emergency power, Elena guessed. After 300 years, it was amazing that anything still worked. The quantum. Cores are this way, said Yuki, checking her scanner. She led them deeper into the ship, past rooms full of broken equipment and corridors lined with symbols they could not read. They found the engine room. 20 minutes later. It was enormous, filled with machinery that hurt to look at. The Zephyrian quantum cores sat in the center like sleeping gods. Each one was the size of a small building and covered in crystals that had once glowed with power. Completely dead, said Marcus after scanning the cores. The Altarians were right. These things are burned out beyond repair. Would take a whole planet's resources to fix even one of them. Elena studied the massive engines. The Altarians had tried to remove some of the smaller components, but had given up when they realized how damaged everything was. To them, a ship without working quantum cores was just expensive scrap metal, but Elena was not looking at the cores. She was looking at the spaces around them, the power conduits, the support structures, the backup systems that other races barely understood. Marcus, she said slowly, how big are our fusion reactors back on the Phoenix? Marcus looked confused. About 3 meters tall. Why? Elena pointed at a section of empty space near the quantum. Cores? Think we could fit 6 of them in that space? 6 reactors? Marcus sounded shocked. Captain, that is not how Zephyrian ships work. Their power systems are completely different from ours. I know, said Elena, but what if we made them work together? Human power systems feeding Zephyrian technology. Yuki was quiet for a long moment. Then she started to speak faster, the way she did when she was excited. It might work. Zephyrian. Systems are designed to be efficient, but they also have massive power requirements. If we could feed them enough raw energy... The ship would not be elegant, said Marcus. It would be rough and ugly. Elena smiled inside her helmet. I can live with ugly. Can you make it work? Marcus looked around the huge engine room. He studied the dead quantum cores and the empty spaces between them. Slowly he started to nod. It would take months, maybe a year. And we would need a lot more people. But could you make it work? Yeah, said Marcus. I think I could make it work. Elena felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. The galaxy saw humans as nothing more than useful scavengers. They gave humans the dangerous jobs and the scraps that no one else wanted. But maybe that was about to change. Maybe it was time to show the galaxy what humans could do with other people's garbage. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in the cargo bay of a much larger ship. The rust bucket was not pretty to look at, but it could carry 50 times more equipment than the Phoenix. Around her, 23 men and women worked to unload fusion reactors, power tables, and cutting tools. Getting this far had not been easy. Elena's company, Vasquez Salvage, had laughed when she asked for the equipment she needed. They told her to strip the valuable metals from the Zephyrian ship and forget about trying to fix it. When she refused, they fired her, but Elena had saved money for years. She used every credit she had to buy the rust bucket and hire a real crew. Most of them were like Marcus and Yuki, good people who had been kicked out of better jobs for thinking too much or asking too many questions. Reactor number 4 is in position, called out Jake Morrison. Jake was a big man with red hair and arms like tree trunks. He had been thrown out of the Colonial Navy for hitting an officer who was treating his men badly. Now he was Elena's cargo chief. Good, Elena said. Get it secured and start on number 5. She walked through the cargo bay, checking on the work. The fusion reactors were human-built and simple compared to alien technology. Each one was just a metal cylinder with pipes and cables coming out of it, but Elena knew they were reliable. Human reactors might not be elegant, but they kept working when fancier systems failed. "Captain," said a voice behind her. Elena turned to see Dr. Sarah Kim walking over. Sarah was their new computer specialist. She had been fired from 3 different tech companies for refusing to use alien programming languages. She insisted that human code was easier to fix when things went wrong. "What is it, Sarah?" "I have been thinking about the ship's computer systems," Sarah said. "The Zephyrians use neural networks that think for themselves. Very advanced, but also very fragile. When the networks died, the whole computer system stopped working." Elena nodded. She had seen this problem before. Alien computers were incredibly smart, but when they broke, nobody could fix them. "What are you suggesting?" "We rip out the neural networks and install human computers instead," Sarah said. "It will not be as smart, but it will be something. We can actually repair and program." "Will it be able to control a ship this big?" Sarah smiled. "I will need to install about 50 computer cores throughout the ship and connect them with hardwired cables. The system will be slower than the original, but it will work. And if one computer fails, the others can take over." Elena thought about this. It was another step away from the original Zephyrian design, but it was also another step towards something humans could actually use and maintain. Do it. The work on the Zephyrian ship took place in shifts around the clock. Elena divided her crew into 3 teams. One team worked on installing the fusion reactors. Another team worked on ripping out damaged alien systems and replacing them with human equipment. The third team worked on patching holes in the hull and fixing the life support systems. Elena spent most of her time floating through the ship's massive corridors, checking on progress and solving problems. The Zephyrian ship was huge and complicated. Every day brought new challenges. "Captain, we have a problem in Section 7, Marcus called over the radio. Elena pushed off from a wall and floated through the ship toward his location. She found him standing in front of a wall covered in glowing crystals. "What am I looking at?" Elena asked. "The ship's weapons control system," Marcus said. "The Zephyrians use these crystals to aim and fire their energy weapons, but the crystals are all cracked. I think they got damaged in whatever battle killed." This ship, Elena studied the broken crystals. They had once been beautiful, but now they looked like shattered glass. "Can we fix them?" "Not with human technology," Marcus said. "But I might be able to bypass them." "How?" Marcus pointed to a section of wall next to the crystals. "I could install manual controls there, old-fashioned switches and dials that connect directly to the weapons. It would not be as fast or accurate as the crystal system, but it would work." Elena smiled. This was exactly the kind of thinking that made humans good at salvage work. When something fancy broke, they found a simple way to do the same job. Do it. 2 months into the project, Elena got her first real visitor. She was welding a power cable in the engine room when Yuki's voice came over the radio. "Captain, we have a ship approaching. It is broadcasting corporate codes," Elena sighed. She had been expecting this. Word was getting around that she was trying to restore a Zephyrian dreadnought. Sooner or later, someone would come to stop her or steal her work. She floated back to the ship's new bridge. Sarah had installed human computer stations throughout the large Zephyrian command center. The mix of alien architecture and human technology looked strange, but it worked. "What kind of ship?" Elena asked. "Altarian design," said Yuki. "But the signal codes say it belongs to Galactic Salvage Incorporated." Elena knew that company. They were big and rich and did not like competition from small operators like her. "Put them on the screen." The main display lit up with the image of a well-dressed human man. Elena recognized him immediately. David Chun, Marcus's older brother. David worked for the big companies and looked down on independent salvagers. "Elena," David said with a fake smile. I heard you were out here playing with toys too big for. Yeah. Hello, David, Elena said. Come to steal my work? David laughed. Steal? Elena, you cannot steal something that does not belong to anyone. This ship was abandoned. My company has a legal right to claim it. I got here first, Elena said. You got here first, but you do not have the resources to actually do anything with it, David said. Be reasonable. Sell us your salvage rights? We will pay you enough to buy 3 ships like that rust bucket you are flying. Elena looked around the bridge. Her crew was watching the conversation. She saw determination in their faces. These people had put months of work into this project. They were not going to give up now. No deal, David, she said. David's smile disappeared. Elena, you are making a mistake. Even if you could get this ship working, which you cannot, what would you do with it? You are not a military commander. You are a salvager, maybe, Elena said. But I'm a salvager who is about to own a working Zephyrian dreadnought. David stared at her for a moment, then he shook his head. You have 30 days, Elena. If you have not abandoned this project by then, Galactic Salvage will file a legal claim. We have lawyers and money. You have nothing. The screen went dark. Elena turned to look at her crew. They were all watching her, waiting to see what she would do. You heard him, Elena said. 30 days. Can we get this ship working in 30 days? Marcus spoke first. The reactors will be online in 2 weeks. After that, we just need to connect all the systems and test everything. Sarah nodded. The computers are almost ready. I just need to write the control programs. Jake crossed his arms. The hull repairs are mostly done. We can seal the remaining breaches in a few days. Elena looked around at her crew. They were tired and dirty and had been living in spacesuits for months. But they were also excited. They could see the finish line now. Then let us get back to work, Elena said. We have a ship to bring back to life. Over the next 4 weeks, the pace of work increased. People worked longer shifts and slept less. The ship began to feel different. Lights came on in sections that had been dark for centuries. The air recycling system started working. The artificial gravity activated in some areas. On day 28, Marcus made the final connection between the fusion reactors and the ship's main power grid. For the first time in 300 years, the Zephyrian dreadnought had full power running through its systems. Elena stood on the bridge and watched as displays came to life around her. The ship's sensors activated and began scanning the space around them. The navigation system started calculating their position. Deep in the ship's hull, massive engines that had been silent for centuries began to warm up. All systems show green, Sarah reported from her station. The ship is ready for flight. Elena sat down in the captain's chair. It was too big for her, designed for the tall Zephyrians who had once commanded this vessel. But it felt right anyway. Take us out of the debris field, she ordered. Nice and slow, the ship began to move. It was not graceful. The mixture of human and alien systems made everything feel rough and patched together, but it worked. The dead? Ship lived again. As they cleared the last of the floating wrecks, Elena smiled. David Chun had been wrong. She was not just a salvager anymore. She was the captain of a warship. Elena named the ship the Sovereign's Wrath, keeping the original Zephyrian name that Yuki had found in the computer files. For 3 months, they tested every system and learned how to fly their strange hybrid vessel. The ship was not like anything else in the galaxy. It was part ancient alien technology and part human engineering. It was ugly and rough, but it worked. The crew grew to love their unusual ship. Marcus spent his days in the engine room, watching the fusion reactors feed power to systems designed by a race that had died centuries ago. Sarah programmed new software that could control weapons older than human civilization. Jake trained teams to repair hull damage using both Zephyrian, self-healing metals, and human welding techniques. Elena learned to command a ship that was 2 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Zephyrian weapons were incredible. Energy beams that could cut through any armor. Missile systems that could track targets across star systems. Shield generators that could stop almost any attack. but their peaceful testing time was about to end. Elena was reviewing supply reports when Yuki rushed onto the bridge. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. "Captain, you need to see this," Yuki said. She moved to her science station and brought up a display on the main screen. "I have been monitoring deep space communication channels. There are reports coming in from the outer colonies." The screen showed a map of human space. Red dots marked the locations of human colonies and space stations. But some of the dots were flashing and others had turned black completely. "What am I looking at?" Elena asked. "Colony ships going silent," Yuki said. "Mining stations sending emergency signals and then cutting off." "Captain, something is attacking the outer settlements." Elena studied the map. The pattern was clear. Whatever was attacking was moving inward, hitting the farthest human colonies first and working its way toward Earth. "Any idea what is doing this?" Yuki took a deep breath. The last message from Kepler Station mentioned black ships that could repair themselves. Ships that ate other ships for metal and energy. "Captain, I think the Devourers have returned." The bridge went quiet. Everyone had heard stories about the Devourers. They were machines, not living beings. Ancient war machines that had destroyed entire civilizations. Most people thought they were just legends. "Are you sure?" Elena asked. "The attack patterns match historical records," Yuki said. "The Devourers destroyed the Zephyrian Empire 300 years ago. Now they are back." Marcus looked up from his engineering station. "If the stories are true, Devourer ships can adapt to any weapon used against them. That is why no one has ever been able to stop them." Elena thought about this. Adaptive technology was the Devourer's greatest strength. They could learn to defend against any attack and find weaknesses in any defense. But their ship was different from anything the Devourers had faced before. "Sarah, get me a communication link to Colonial Command." Elena ordered. It took several minutes to establish contact with Earth. When the connection finally came through, Elena found herself talking to Admiral Rodriguez, the head of Colonial Defense Forces. "Captain Vasquez," the Admiral said. He looked tired and worried. "I have heard some interesting rumors about your salvage work." "They are not rumors, Admiral," Elena said. "We have a working Zephyrian dreadnought, fully armed and operational." "Admiral." Rodriguez leaned forward. "How many ships like that do you have?" "Just one," Elena admitted. "But it might be enough to make a difference." The Admiral shook his head. "Captain, we have lost contact with 12 colonies in the past week. Our best ships have engaged the enemy and been destroyed. I appreciate your offer, but one ship cannot stop this threat." "With respect, Admiral, you have never seen a ship like this one," Elena said. "The Devourers adapt to alien technology and human technology separately, but this ship is both. It might confuse them long enough for us to do some damage." "Admiral." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, then he nodded slowly. "There is a colony transport under attack at Kepler 442b. 300,000 civilians trying to evacuate. Our fleet cannot get there in time. If you want to test your theory, that would be the place to do it." Elena looked around the bridge. Her crew was watching her, waiting for her decision. These people had followed her this far. They deserved to know what they were getting into. "This is not what any of us signed up for," Elena said. "We are salvagers, not soldiers. If anyone wants to leave, now is the time." Nobody moved. Jake spoke for all of them. "Captain, we built this ship together. We should fight in it together." Elena nodded. "Admiral, we are on our way to Kepler 442b. The journey took 18 hours at maximum speed." During the trip, Elena gathered her senior staff to plan their attack. The bridge displays showed everything they knew about Devourer tactics and technology. "Devourer ships are fast and heavily armed," Yuki explained. "They attack in groups and focus fire on one target at a time. Their hulls can repair damage almost instantly." Marcus studied the technical readouts. "Their power systems are based on quantum cores, just like the original Zephyrian ships. But they have been improved over the centuries." "What about their adaptive technology?" Elena asked. "They scan enemy weapons during combat," Sarah said. After a few minutes, they can adjust their shields to block almost any attack. That is why conventional fleets cannot stop them. Elena looked at the tactical display, but our weapons are not conventional. Half of them are Zephyrian technology that is 300 years old. The other half are human weapons that the Devourers have probably never seen before. That might give us an advantage, Marcus agreed. At least for the first few minutes of combat. When they arrived at Kepler 442b, Elena could see the battle was already over. The planet's orbital defense stations were burning wrecks. 3 large transport ships hung dead in space, their hulls torn open. Around the planet, 6 black Devourer ships moved like sharks, hunting for survivors. "There," said Yuki, pointing at her scanner. "One transport is still intact. They have managed to hide behind the planet's moon." Elena could see it on the main screen. The transport ship looked tiny compared to the Devourer vessels. Its hull was scarred and one of its engines was dark, but it was still alive. Devourer. "Ships are moving to attack the transport," Marcus reported. "They will reach it in 10 minutes. Elena sat forward in her command chair. "All stations, battle ready. Target the lead Devourer ship. Sarah, I want you to cycle through different weapon types every 30 seconds. Do not give them time to adapt." "Understood, Captain," Sarah said. The Sovereign's Wrath moved out from behind an asteroid where they had been hiding. The Devourer. Ships immediately detected them and began to turn in their direction. 6 contacts, Yuki reported. Each one is about half our size, but they are fast. Elena watched the enemy ships approach. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Smooth, black hulls that seemed to absorb light. No visible weapons, but she knew. They were there, range in 30 seconds, Marcus called out. "Fire when ready," Elena ordered. The first salvo was pure Zephyrian technology. Blue energy beams lanced out from the Sovereign's Wrath and struck the lead Devourer ship. The enemy shields flared and buckled. For a moment, Elena thought they had destroyed it, but the Devourer hull began to repair itself almost immediately. The damage faded away like it had never happened. "Their shields are adapting," Sarah reported. Switching to human weapons, the next attack was different. Solid metal slugs fired from railguns at incredible speed. The projectiles punched through the Devourer shields like they were not there and tore chunks out of the enemy hull. The Devourer ship stopped repairing itself and began to drift. 1 down, 5 to go, but the other Devourers were learning. They spread out and began firing back. Dark energy beams struck the Sovereign's Wrath. The ship shook as alien shields absorbed the impact. "Shields holding," Marcus reported. "But they are targeting our power systems." Elena gripped her chair as the ship rocked under enemy fire. "Keep cycling weapons. Do not let them figure us out." The battle became a deadly dance. The Sovereign's Wrath would fire with one weapon system, then switch to another before the Devourers could adapt. Energy beams, railguns, particle cannons, and missile systems all took turns. Each time the enemy started to adjust their defenses. Elena's crew would surprise them with something different. 2 more Devourer ships died before they began to retreat. The survivors pulled back toward the edge of the system, clearly confused by an enemy they could not understand or predict. Elena watched them go. "Let them run. We have what we came for." The transport ship was safe. 300,000 lives had been saved, but Elena knew this was just the beginning. The Devourers would learn from this battle. Next time they would be ready, but maybe if they were lucky, humans would be ready too. News of the victory at Kepler 442 spread across human space like wildfire. For the first time in weeks, people had hope. One ship had done what entire fleets could not do. It had fought the Devourers and won, but Elena knew the truth was more complicated. The Sovereign's Wrath had surprised the enemy, but surprises only worked once. The Devourers were learning machines. They would not make the same mistakes again. 3 days after the battle, Elena received a message that she had been expecting. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with her. The Council station orbited a neutral star. Halfway between human space and the Altarian colonies, Elena had never been there before. As the Sovereign's Wrath approached the massive space station, She felt nervous. The council represented dozens of alien races, many of them far more advanced than humans. "Impressive," said Marcus as he looked at the station through the bridge windows. The structure was huge, built from crystal and metal in flowing shapes. That hurt to look at. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports. Elena had brought her senior staff with her to the meeting. They walked through corridors filled with aliens she had only seen in pictures. Tall blue Altarians with 4 arms. Small green vegans with large eyes. Centauri who looked like walking trees. And many others she could not identify. The council chamber was a vast round room with seats arranged in circles. Representatives from each race sat in their designated areas. At the center of the room was a single chair for whoever was addressing the council. Elena walked to the center chair and sat down. Above her, holographic displays showed her face to everyone in the chamber. She tried not to look nervous. The council speaker was an ancient Altarian with silver skin and tired eyes. He had been in charge of council meetings for over 200 years, Captain Vasquez, the speaker said in perfect English. "We have called you here to discuss the recent battle at Kepler 442b. Our records show that your ship engaged 6 Devourer vessels and destroyed 3 of them. Is this accurate?" "Yes," Elena said. "That is what happened." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Elena heard dozens of different languages being translated by computer systems. "How is this possible?" asked a vegan representative. "Our best ships have been destroyed by single Devourer vessels. You claim to have defeated 6 with 1 ship?" Elena stood up so everyone could see her better. "The Sovereign's wrath is not like your ships. It combines human and Zephyrian technology in ways the Devourers have never seen before." An Altarian engineer leaned forward. "We examined that ship before you restored it. The quantum cores were completely destroyed. How did you solve the power problem?" "We did not solve it," Elena said. "We worked around it. We installed human fusion reactors and connected them to the Zephyrian systems." The chamber erupted in noise. Elena heard the word impossible in at least 6 different languages. The Altarian engineer looked shocked. "That should not work," he said. "Zephyrian power systems require quantum-level precision." "Fusion reactors are too crude," Elena smiled. "That is what everyone said, but it does work. Not elegantly, but it works." The council speaker raised his hand for quiet. "Even if your ship is effective against the Devourers, it is only 1 vessel. Our intelligence reports show that the Devourer fleet has over 1,000 ships. 1 ship cannot stop that many enemies." "You are right," Elena said. 1 ship is not enough." "But what if it was not just 1 ship?" The chamber went quiet. Elena could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her. "What are you suggesting?" the speaker asked. "The galaxy is full of abandoned warships," Elena said. "Ships that advanced races have thrown away because they are too damaged to repair with normal methods. Give me access to those ships and the resources to restore them. I can build a fleet that thinks like humans but fights with alien weapons." A Centauri representative spoke up. "Even if this was possible, it would take years to restore enough ships to matter." "Not if we work together," Elena said. "Humans are good at salvage and repair work. Other races are good at different things. If we combine our skills, we can move much faster." The debate went on for hours. Some council members thought Elena's plan was brilliant. Others thought it was impossible. A few thought it was dangerous to give humans access to so much military technology. Finally, the speaker called for a vote. Elena waited in the center of the chamber as representatives from across the galaxy decided her fate. The vote was close, but it passed. Elena would get her chance to build a fleet of restored warships, but there was a catch. She would not be working alone. The council assigned observers from each major race to watch her work and make sure she did not become a threat to galactic peace. Elena did not mind the observers. She had nothing to hide, and some of them might actually be helpful. The real problem came 2 weeks later. Elena was back at the Kepler debris field, examining potential ships to restore. The council had given her access to 3 other ship graveyards and enough money to hire 1,000 workers. The project was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. She was studying the hull of a damaged Altarian cruiser when Yuki called her on the radio. "Captain, we have incoming ships. Multiple contacts, moving fast." Elena pushed off from the cruiser and jetted back toward the Sovereign's Wrath. "How many ships?" 12 Devourer vessels, Yuki said. "They will be here in 20 minutes. Elena's blood turned cold. The Devourers had found them. Worse, they had come in force. 12 ships was twice what they had faced at Kepler 442b. "All crew, return to ship immediately," Elena ordered over the general radio channel. "Prepare for combat." Elena reached the bridge just as the last of her people were climbing aboard. Through the windows she could see her workers abandoning half-finished projects and racing back to safety. "Can we run?" Elena asked Marcus. "Not with a full load of salvage equipment," Marcus said. "We are too heavy for high-speed maneuvering." Elena looked at the tactical display. The Devourer ships were spreading out as they approached, trying to surround the debris field. They had learned from the last battle. This time they would not let the Sovereign's Wrath escape. "Captain," said Sarah from her station, "I am detecting something strange about the Devourer ships. Their hull configurations are different from the ones we fought before." Elena studied the scanner readings. Sarah was right. These Devourer ships looked similar to the others, but there were small differences in their design. "They have been modified," Yuki said. "The Devourers have changed their ships based on what they learned from our last battle." That was bad news. It meant the Devourers were adapting not just during combat, but between battles. They were preparing specifically to fight the Sovereign's Wrath. "Range in 5 minutes, Marcus reported. Elena made her decision. "Sarah, I want you to try something new. Instead of cycling through our normal weapons, I want you to use combinations. Fire the rail guns and energy beams at the same time. Mix missile attacks with particle cannons. Make it as confusing as possible." "Understood, Captain." The battle began badly. The Devourer ships attacked from multiple directions at once, forcing Elena to divide her fire. Their modified hulls were better at absorbing damage, and their weapons seemed more powerful than before. The Sovereign's Wrath shook under repeated hits. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The lights flickered as power systems struggled to maintain the shields. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Jake reported. "Sealing emergency bulkheads." Elena gripped her chair as another salvo of enemy fire hammered their shields. "Sarah, how are the weapon combinations working?" "The Devourers are still adapting, but slower than before," Sarah said. "The mixed attacks are confusing their systems." It was not enough. Elena could see that they were losing. The Sovereign's Wrath was tough, but it was still just one ship against 12. They needed help. Then Elena remembered something. They were fighting in a ship graveyard. Thousands of dead vessels floated around them, full of old weapons and power. "Systems. Marcus, can you overload one of our damaged fusion reactors?" Elena asked. Marcus looked confused. "Yes, but why would I want to do that?" "Because I want to turn it into a bomb," Elena said. "Sarah, target that cluster of Altarian destroyers to our port side. When I give the signal, fire everything we have at them." Elena's plan was desperate, but it might work. The Sovereigns' Wrath accelerated toward the cluster of dead ships, with 6 Devourer vessels following close behind. "Now!" Elena shouted. The Sovereign's Wrath fired every weapon it had at the dead Altarian destroyers. The energy beams and railgun slugs tore through the ancient hulls, exposing fuel tanks and power systems that had been dormant for decades. At the same time, Marcus ejected the overloaded fusion reactor. The small device drifted toward the damaged wrecks, its containment field failing. The explosion was incredible. The reactor detonated in a chain reaction that consumed the Altarian destroyers and everything around them. 4 Devourer ships were caught in the blast and torn apart. The remaining Devourer ships pulled back, clearly surprised by the tactic. Elena used their confusion to escape, jumping to hyperspace before they could regroup. As the Sovereign's Wrath fled through hyperspace, Elena looked around the damaged bridge. They had survived, but barely. Next time, the Devourers would be ready for this tactic too. Elena realized that fighting the Devourers would be like fighting an enemy that learned from every M. 6 months later, Elena stood on the bridge of the Sovereign's Wrath and watched the largest fleet in human history prepare for battle. 57 ships floated in formation around her flagship. Each one was different. Each one had been built from the galaxy's unwanted scrap dot. There was the Defiant Phoenix, a vegan cruiser powered by human reactors and armed with Centauri plasma cannons. The Iron Will, an Altarian destroyer that Marcus had fitted with human armor plating so thick it looked like a flying brick. The Second Chance, a mix of 3 different ship types welded together into something that should not fly, but somehow did. Elena's fleet was ugly, the ships did not match. Their weapons came from dozen different races. Their hulls were patched with whatever materials the crews could find. But they worked, and that was all that mattered. The past months had been the hardest of Elena's life. Building one ship had been difficult. Building a fleet had been nearly impossible. They had worked in secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and empty star systems. Thousands of humans had volunteered to help, along with aliens who believed. In Elena's vision, not everyone had supported the project. David Chun and his corporate friends had tried to stop them with lawsuits and sabotage. Some government officials had worried about giving humans too much military power. 3 times, Elena had faced attempts to shut down the restoration work, but the Devourer attacks had continued, and conventional fleets kept losing. Every week brought news of more colonies destroyed and more ships consumed. The galaxy was running out of options. Now, finally, Elena's fleet was ready for its real test. Intelligence reports showed that the main Devourer armada was moving toward Earth itself. Over 800 enemy ships, including massive command vessels that could destroy entire planets, the Galactic Council had assembled. Every available warship to defend humanity's homeworld. Altarian battle cruisers, vegan fast attack ships, Centauri heavy destroyers, and dozens of other vessel types. It was the largest military force ever gathered, but Elena knew it would not be enough. Conventional tactics had failed against the Devourers for centuries. The enemy ships would adapt to each weapon system and counter every strategy. The galaxy's finest military minds had already tried everything. That was why Elena's fleet would fight differently. Admiral Rodriguez is requesting a communication link, said Sarah from her station. Elena nodded. Put him through. The main screen lit up with the image of the Colonial Defense Commander. Behind him, Elena could see the bridge of his flagship, a massive human dreadnought bristling with weapons. Captain Vasquez, the Admiral said, my tactical officers have reviewed your battle plan. They think you are insane, Elena smiled. They are probably right, Admiral. But insane plans are the only ones that work against the Devourers. You want to split up your fleet and attack from 6 different directions? The Admiral said. You want to use suicide runs and kamikaze tactics. You want to detonate reactors inside enemy formations. These are not military strategies. These are desperate gambles. The Devourers adapt to military strategies, Elena said. They cannot adapt to chaos and unpredictability. My ships will not follow standard attack patterns. They will do whatever. Seems crazy at the moment. Admiral Rodriguez shook his head. I have 3,000 ships under my command. Trained crews, advanced weapons, coordinated tactics. Why should I trust my people's lives to your fleet of flying junk heaps? Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was listening to the conversation. She saw Marcus at his engineering station, keeping their hybrid systems running. Sarah at her computer, ready to confuse enemy targeting systems. Jake coordinating damage control teams throughout the ship. Because, Admiral, flying junk heaps are what humans do best, Elena said. The battle began 12 hours later. Elena watched from the Sovereign's Wrath as 800 Devourer ships dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. They moved in perfect formation. Like a dark tide rolling across the stars, the galaxy's combined fleet met them halfway between Earth and Mars, 3,000 allied ships against 800 enemies. It should have been an easy victory. It was not. The Devourers had learned from every previous battle. Their ships adapted to allied weapons within minutes. Their formation tactics countered every attempted maneuver. Within 2 hours, over half the Allied fleet was destroyed or disabled. Admiral Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system. Elena, we cannot hold them. They are adapting faster than we can change tactics. We need your ships now. Understood, Admiral, Elena said. All ships, this is Sovereign's Wrath, execute Plan Chaos. Elena's fleet split apart and attacked from every direction at once. The Defiant Phoenix came in fast and low, firing everything it had before spinning away like a drunken comet. The Iron Will charged straight at a Devourer formation, using its thick armor to ram 2 enemy ships before they could react. The Second Chance did something that no military manual would ever recommend. It fired all its missiles at empty space, then detonated them in a pattern that confused Devourer sensors. Long enough for 3 other human ships to attack from behind. Each ship in Elena's fleet fought its own battle. There was no coordination, no master plan, no predictable strategy. Captains made decisions based on instinct and desperation. They tried tactics that made no sense and weapons combinations that should not work. The Devourers tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to. How do you defend against an enemy that has no plan? How do you predict chaos? Elena watched the battle from her command chair and felt proud of her crews. They were doing exactly what she had hoped. They were fighting like humans, but the battle was far from over. Even with the confusion Elena's fleet was causing, there were still too many Devourer ships. The enemy was starting to recover from their surprise and focus fire on the most dangerous human vessels. The Iron Will was the first to fall. Elena watched helplessly as concentrated Devourer fire overwhelmed its thick armor and tore the ship apart. Captain Williams and his crew of 50 people died in seconds. Then the Defiant Phoenix took a direct hit to its reactor core. The ship vanished in a brilliant explosion that took 2 Devourer vessels with it. Elena realized they were still losing. Her ships were brave and unpredictable, but they were also outnumbered and outgunned. She needed something more. Marcus. How many damaged fusion reactors do we have in Cargo Bay 3? Elena asked. 12, Captain. We were going to repair them when we had time. Elena smiled grimly. We are going to use them now. Sarah, target the center of the Devourer formation. I want you to plot a collision course with their command ship. Sarah turned to stare at her. Captain, that would be suicide. Not necessarily, Elena said. Jake, I want you to prepare all emergency escape pods. Everyone who is not essential to flying this ship needs to get ready to abandon ship. Elena stood up and walked to the center of the bridge. Around her, the battle continued to rage. Human ships were fighting and dying against an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. All ships, this is Elena Vasquez, she said over the fleet communication channel. I'm going to ram the Devourer command ship. When I do, their formation will break apart. That is your chance to hit them with everything you have. Protests came from dozens of ship captains, but Elena had made her decision. She turned to her crew. Anyone who wants to leave can take an escape pod, she said. I will not order anyone to die with me. Nobody moved. Marcus spoke for all of them. We built this ship together, Captain. We should finish this together. Elena nodded and sat back down in her command chair. Sarah, take us in, full speed. The Sovereign's Wrath accelerated toward the center of the Devourer formation. Enemy ships turned to fire at them, but Elena's vessel had been built to take damage. Zephyrian shields absorbed energy beams while human armor plating deflected particle weapons. Range to target 30 seconds, Sarah reported. Elena could see the Devourer command ship growing larger on the screen. It was huge and black and terrible. But it was also just metal and circuits. It could be broken. Reactor overload initiated, Marcus called out. 15 seconds to detonation. All remaining ships attack now. Elena ordered. What was left of Elena's fleet struck the Devourer formation from every direction. With their command ship about to be destroyed, the enemy vessels lost coordination. Human ships found gaps in their defenses and exploited them with weapons the Devourers had never seen before. The Sovereign's wrath struck the command ship at full speed. The impact tore through both vessels, and 12 overloaded fusion reactors detonated at the same time. The explosion lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the Devourer formation was shattered. Their remaining ships fled in confusion. Their ancient unity finally broken, Elena woke up 3 days later in a hospital on Earth. Somehow, her escape pod had survived the explosion, so had most of her crew. They were heroes now, but Elena knew the truth. They had not won because they were better than the Devourers. They had won because they were different. They had won because humans could take broken things and make them work. They had won because sometimes the best weapon against perfection is chaos. Elena looked out the hospital window at the stars and smiled. The galaxy?